the co-chair of the bipartisan US-China working group, Rick Larsen, tweeted this about Blinken. If you think the US should commit to alliances and rebuild diplomacy, then this is a great pick. I support it. Well, let's bring him in. Representative Rick Larsen joining us now from Washington. You are, sir, and thank you for joining us, the co-chair of the bipartisan US-China working group. Antony Blinken has said earlier that Biden would engage China from a, quote, position of strength. It will focus its efforts, this being a Biden administration, on restoring US democracy and its relations with allies. What then, or explain how you think that that approach might be a better approach when Washington takes on its China policy moving forward.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Becky. I appreciate it. I think that the current Trump administration is seeing the U.S.-China relationship both from an adversarial perspective and from strictly a bilateral perspective, when in fact the United States has friends and allies and partners in that region that we can turn to help us deal with the issues the U.S. does have with China. That could be on technology, it could be on trade, certainly could be on communicating about democracy and human rights and other issues as well.
What's your sense and what are your sources telling you about how Beijing is responding to what is now an official transition period and a new Biden administration? We now, it's been revealed at least, the sort of, top characters in that cabinet.
Well, in my experience in talking with Chinese leaders, they don't like the roller coaster ride, if you will, of the U.S.-China relationship. I think right now in that roller coaster ride, it's at a lower point in the roller coaster. There's opportunities, there's nowhere to go but up, as they say. But I do think the U.S. and the Biden administration, incoming Biden administration, needs to have open eyes about this relationship. There are areas of competition. There are areas like on technology where the U.S. and China have different views on how to use technology and how to invest in technology. But areas of cooperation could include on climate change, when you have the largest economies in the world and largest emitters of CO2 in the world, transnational terrorism, North Korea. There are issues where cooperation will be necessary, but we also need to recognize that there are areas where we're going to differ and just be realistic about those areas of difference.
And this is likely to be an administration which puts human rights back, at the center of its values-based foreign policy. For the first time, Pope Francis has publicly named China's largely Muslim Uyghur minority among the world's persecuted peoples. What do you make of that, for example, and how might this new human rights-based values policy that we expect from the Biden administration play into its relationship with China going forward?
There's a couple of realities to that question. First reality is that Congress probably won't give the Biden administration a lot of wiggle room on the human rights issue. The U.S. Congress has been very proactive in passing legislation in response to what we see as basically labor camps in Western China and Xinjiang, and the treatment of democracy, pro-democracy activists in Hong Kong. So the U.S. Congress has been very strong in its views, and so I don't think we give the Biden administration, and I'm speaking as a Democrat, I don't think we give the Biden administration a lot of wiggle room. On the other side of that is I do think it is realistic to expect that the Biden administration will be much more active on promoting human rights, because it's in a tradition of U.S. foreign policy to do that. I'd also would note that the Chinese leadership makes it really easy for the United States to stand up for human rights when you see what is happening in Xinjiang and Hong Kong as an example.
While you and I have been talking, I just want our viewers to know that the Dow Jones Industrial Average has actually touched an historic high of 30,000, and there it goes again, and it's flicking back and forth. 29,999.74. It's just flicked onto 30,000 and below. This is a stock market that certainly likes this sort of return, as some people are describing it, to a sense of normalcy. In Washington, this is a market that didn't like the disruption that was the spat with China as the Trump administration, looked to reduce its dependency, the U.S. dependency, as it described it, on China. And that's been echoed once again by Mark Rubio today. He says, I support America's greatness. I have no interest, Marco Rubio, in returning to the normal that left us dependent on China. Your sense, your response to a remark like that?
Well, first off, I'd say the stock market doesn't reflect the broader economy in the United States, and the broader economy is still hurting, and which is why we really would press the Biden administration, and I think they're going to do this, is to make pandemic relief the #1 priority for the administration. The second is to, as the Biden folks say, to build back better. That is to invest in the U.S. economy. Investing in our economy here at home is actually a very strong message to the rest of the world that we do want to take care of ourselves, that it would help lessen the dependency on China. So a domestic investment policy is an important part of our broader, has to be an important part of our broader policy with regards to China. I think looking specifically at Senator Rubio's comments, and I haven't talked to him about it, but I think he's probably trying to harken back to that Clinton, Bush, Obama era, when there was the criticism that the United States was too accommodating to China. I think probably between that bookend and the other bookend where we should totally decouple is where the truth lies, that there are areas of cooperation, that there are areas of our economies that aren't going to decouple, that trade is going to continue, but that we need to recognize, especially in the technology sector, where we're probably going to continue to run into problems with the Chinese investment and how the U.S. approaches technology investment here at home.
So you're right to point out the Dow Jones Industrial Average doesn't reflect the kind of wider U.S. economy, but it is an indicator of sentiment and how investors certainly feel about what is going on, oftentimes in the corridors of power around the world. And this market is on a bit of a rip today. We are now past 30,000. We've been as high as, I think, 30,011. It's knocking around that point. But this is an historic high, folks. I mean, this is quite remarkable stuff, given the year that we have had, given the pandemic that has fueled fears around the world about what global economies or what the global economy will look like in the year of 2021. So many of us working from home these days, so much of the service sector decimated by this pandemic. But it's certainly on the markets in the U.S. today, those investors who are investing in the Dow Jones Industrial Average and its stocks taking this market above an historic high. It's a pleasure speaking to you, sir. It's been a real pleasure. We'll do more on this as we go on.